Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is the show where I review all the comics I read this week in one show. So let's get started. We go least favorite to best pick of the week, and this week I had a pretty big haul with 17 comics. So number 17 for me this week was Legion of Superheroes issue 1. So this is a series I've always wanted to get into. I've read issue 1s here and there throughout the years that they've come out, and it's like, I know nothing about these characters. I'm gonna, skip this. And same thing kind of happens here. You would think this would be a good introduction because we haven't seen the Legion in a long time, and this is the introduction of John getting to learn who the team is. And obviously I know who John is, and he's a good lead-in to the rest of this universe. But it is so clustered and well, honestly, I would say cluttered is more of the word for it. It's just so many characters you're being introduced to, and it's just, you're thrown into this world without any character to really feel like, okay, I know who the Legion is, besides maybe Saturn Girl, but she's in like 2 pages. Like, John, I'm going to take you on a journey. And that's the issue, really. And I think if you're a Legion fan, you'll like this. You're going to be like, oh, there's Saturn Girl. I don't know any other Legion characters. And there's that other guy. So I think if you are a fan of this franchise, you'll like it. It's a new spin on it. But if you are like me, and I think a lot of people that have never really gotten into the series, I don't think this is a good jumping on point. I like the artwork, but other than that, I really couldn't get into this one. I don't think I'm going to get issue 2 unless, something mind-blowing happens and it becomes more character-driven. But as of right now, I'm going to be dropping this series. So I'm going to give that 2 stars, and that is number 17. Moving on to number 16, and this is another Bendis book, sadly, and I am so torn on this issue. So this is Young Justice issue 10. And first of all, a negative is that this was supposed to be the introduction of Naomi coming onto the team. That's the last page. So if you're just picking this up for Naomi, it's not about Naomi. And then a story I actually really liked in this book was Jinny Hex. And I didn't really know anything about the character, obviously, because she's new, and we haven't really gotten any introduction to her. I was like, all right, this is her story. This is cool. And I liked, kind of the ominous version of her, because we do get to see peeks of what her storyline's about. All right, she works a pretty hefty job. It seems like maybe she's in law enforcement, but then is she really a young justice member? I don't know, but it looks like maybe she's like 18 or 19, so she's old enough to have a job. I guess she just graduated high school. It looks like she might have a girlfriend, and the girlfriend's not very loyal to the relationship. And then Jinny has a conversation with her mom, and she's like, all right, what's this trunk? And her mom's showing all these gadgets from Jonah Hex. And I actually like that story. And what I kind of thought after I read this is like, this honestly had the potential to be such a really good book. Not just like an okay book. This had a potential to be a really good issue. And this was all over the place, this issue. First of all, you get the Jinny, I think her name is, not Jenny. You get the Jinny story with her mom. I think it stops with her mom saying, hey, I have something to show you. And then I thought there was like a page missing or something, because then it jumps into where we were with the multiverse story. And I'm like, okay. So we get 2 pages of the multiverse story, and then we go back to Jinny. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling a little bit of whiplash. So we get that, and then we get 2 pages of that, and then we go back to this multiverse thing. And it doesn't really connect, besides you have this overlay of conversation between the mom, and then it just stops the conversation, and she's like, Mom? And you think, okay, did she die or something? So there's just a lot of storyline that I'm like, oh my god, I wish this whole issue was about Jinny, because there's some really good stuff here, but it's just all scattered throughout the whole issue. And then throw in Naomi at the end. So I just was completely torn with this, because I think there's so many pieces that would have made maybe 5 great issues that was just all thrown into this cluster of issue 10 of Young Justice. So I know this was a very long-winded portion of the review, but yeah, I was really disappointed with this, because it actually could have been a really good issue, maybe even my pick of the week, if it just focused on one thing. So Young Justice issue 10 gets 2 stars, and that is number 16. Moving on to number 15, which is Death or Glory, issue 6. And I think if this issue came out, you know, the 3-month gap it usually Image takes, this would have been higher. But honestly, I didn't really remember as much about the series going into this as I would have if it was 3 months after the issue came out. It's been a really long time since issue 5 has come out, and I just didn't feel as attached to the characters. And also, you don't really get to see the main character until the end of the issue, so it took me out of the story a bit because we haven't seen these characters in a while. So I would say maybe this is a better trade paperback series to keep up with. But it kind of lost my attention a bit with this. But I'm going to try sticking it through to see if I get back into the groove of the series. But kind of lost me with this issue. So Death or Glory issue 6 gets 2.5 stars, I believe. Maybe 2. Yeah, 2.5 stars. And that's number 15. Moving on to number 14, which is X-Force issue 1. And as I've said in all my reviews so far, I've been trying out all the X-Men books and to pick out my favorites. So far, the 2 I'm definitely keeping is, and not including this week, are X-Men, obviously, and then Marauders, obviously. So those are the 2 I'm definitely keeping. And X-Force, I don't know if I really want to get the next issue. I've never been an X-Force fan. I think the only time I've ever liked X-Force was when Second Coming was coming out. And that was the best X-Force series in a really long time. So I enjoyed that version of the series. But other than that, and I think that was like the X-23 days when she was in it. But other than that, I've never been able to get into X-Force. And here, it just, I didn't really enjoy the dialogue that much. I thought it was very bogged down. And then we get to the ending. Spoiler alert if you haven't read X-Force yet and you haven't read this issue. The ending is that Professor Xavier, his Cerebro helmet is destroyed, and it looks like maybe he dies again. So we don't know what ended up happening to him, and I'm guessing that's going to be a big part of the story of, okay, how do we save Professor Xavier? But then you have all the stuff in the island, you know, you have people coming back to life, so I'm curious to see if that's going to play a part. But I like the cliffhanger. I just didn't really like the lead up to it. I was just kind of bored for most of the issue. We don't really get to see that much character interaction or team dynamics in this issue. I love the artwork, though. The artwork really fit the tone of the book really well. But this is also a pretty hefty page count. It's a $4.99 book, so it's kind of long as well. So it just wasn't really my thing. So I don't know if I'm going to get issue 2. It really depends on how that cliffhanger, how that's going to affect the other series. If that's going to be told in X-Men, then I might just read X-Men. And I think it's a shame if he does get hurt and we don't get to see this character, because he's a big point of Powers of X and House of X and why those books were so good. So we'll see where that one goes. Just wasn't a huge fan of it. So I'm going to give that 2.5 stars. And also, I do have a video coming up. I think it's going to be Friday. It's going to be posted maybe tomorrow. It's going to be New Mutants versus X-Men, X-Force issue 1. So which one you should buy this week. So I won't give my thoughts on that topic because I'm going to do a whole video on it. But moving on to number 13. And that is Fantastic Four, issue 16. I got the 2009 cover, the Greg Land cover. I enjoyed. So I'm going to try again some of these 2009 covers, but I like that Marvel does these fun variants every once in a while. But anyways, getting to the story. With this issue, we get to see them going to this planet that has to do with the cosmic rays that got their powers and how that's affecting this planet and how that affects them as characters. And I don't quite love this arc so far because there's just so many new characters that are introduced and kind of thrown at you with the book. But there's small moments I really liked. I really enjoyed Reed and Sue especially just teaming up and Sue being a badass using the Things clobbering time moment. I thought that was cool. And I like the idea of Johnny's story arc, which is that this woman, they're destined to be together, and obviously something that's been going on in the series is that Johnny's like, what am I doing with my life? Should I end up with somebody? Because everyone else I know is getting married and settling down. I want to settle down. So that's a big part of his arc, so I'm curious to see where this is going to go. Don't quite like that character that they're setting him up with, because I think she's kind of boring, and again, I don't love how everyone's been thrown at us, but I like the idea of some of the narratives going on here. A lot of exposition, though, in this issue, so overall, I'm going to give it 2.5 stars. I think there's some fun moments in there, but it's not one of my favorite arcs for the series thus far. I think there's been stronger ones. So giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 15? That was number 13. So number 12, I'm just going to get a sip of water. Number 12 for me is 5 Years, issue 5. So this is lower than this book usually is. It just was a very point A to point B issue. We get to see Zoe find out, okay, it doesn't look like Rachel's dead. Cool. And then I didn't really get the sequence of events that this guy who worked for the Russian government, it seems like, he kept getting hit by her, and then the next panel he'd be okay. Which I get, okay, like, he's kind of not affected by this, but I wish there was another panel in between to see how he wasn't affected by that. The beats felt weird to me. And then the rest of the issue, we get to see Tambi blowing up the senator's house and learning a little bit more about what the government wants to do with this bomb, and they're obviously gonna still use it and test it, and that's gonna destroy the world. So, very slow issue, sadly, and really that's only the 2 parts that are happening, but still, obviously, it's a good series. You just needed it to get to this point A to point B section, and this is the issue they used to do that. So, 5 Years, issue 5 gets 3 stars, and that is number 12. Moving on to number 11. This is also, I love this series, but this has not been my favorite arc, and that is Amazing Spider-Man issue 33. I am not a Spider-Man 2099 fan. I've tried to get into the character. I probably will even read the issue 1 just to really give it a shot, but never been a big fan of his character or future storylines type things like that, where it's, very much about the technology and stuff like that. But yeah, so with this issue, we get to see a little bit more of the 2009 storyline. We get to see Silver Sable and what she's been up to and how she's still alive and where Peter thought she was alive, but then she actually is not okay. So we get a lot of exposition there and how that relates to Teresa in some way. And then we get to see the ending that Dr. Doom is involved with this and in the fight between Silver Sable. So there's a lot going on in this issue, and then somehow they throw in that Peter has to go to class, and they kind of show this clairvoyant technology that's obviously going to tie into 2099. I just don't really love a lot of the plot lines going on. I think they're executed just fine. Like, I like that Silver Sable was there, but I'm like, am I really invested in this story? So none of them really wowed me, but it was an okay issue overall. I did really like the page when Teresa shoots the robot version of Silver Sable. I thought that was just awesome. I'm usually not a Patrick Gleason fan, but damn, that page was really good. So, other than that, though, it's just not my favorite arc. It's okay. The Amazing Spider-Man issue 33 gets 3 stars, and that is number 12. Nope, that was number 11. All right, moving on to number 10, which is New Mutants issue 1, and this is another series. This is the series of things that have issue 1s of books that I've always wanted to get into but never can because it just never has a good jumping on point. And New Mutants being one of them. I tried the previous New Mutants series, didn't really like it. I thought it was very driven for people who have already been invested in that franchise. And I wanted this series to be new reader friendly, and it's not really, I feel like you definitely need to have previous relationships with all these characters to understand their chemistry, because there's nothing that really shouts out, hey, we're buddies type thing, and that was a shame. I don't think there's any special character moments here or team dynamic moments if you are a newer reader to this franchise, but I am a big fan of Ileana, and I absolutely loved her, and she made the book. I loved every scene she was in. She was hysterical. She's breaking people's arms off. She's loving this drink, and there's little heart signs above it. I absolutely loved Ileana, and honestly, she's the main reason why I'm going to be picking up issue 2. And also, I really like the artwork a lot for this book, too. I like that it was a bit brighter. I overall just really enjoyed the style. So, I also think this had a bit more direction than X-Force, and again, I'll go more into detail in my individual video with that. But, yeah, overall, I enjoyed the space adventure aspect to it. I don't know how long I'm going to stick around with this series, but at least it gave me enough to want to pick up issue 2. So New Mutants issue 1 gets 3 stars, and that is number 10. Moving on to number 9, which is Undiscovered Country, issue 1. So we actually did an in-depth review, me and Mike Spireslayer from Comic Book Corner 2.0 on Comic Frontline. So I'll link that in the description and in the comments, so you guys could go check that out if you want a very in-depth conversation about this book. But obviously I picked this up because it was really hyped up that, you know, this is going to be a big book. It's 2 A-list writers, which is Charles Soule and Scott Snyder, which I don't think I pronounced Charles's last name right. I think it's like Soule, maybe. But yes, so you have 2 superstar writers. You have Giuseppe Camuncoli, who does the artwork for the series as well, who's obviously an A-list artist and has done a lot of stuff for Spider-Man. So a superstar team, and also it's already been optioned for a film, so there's a lot of expectations to it. Now, I actually really love the last part of this issue, which is the forward, or I don't know if you call it a forward, but, you know, the little letter at the end of how this story came about. And it was cool to hear how Charles and Scott found a writing language with each other and became overall friends. So I thought that was a really cool little backstory, and I read that actually before the issue, and I thought that was interesting. But the story is about this America who has walls around it, and we don't really know much about this version of America. There's people outside of the walls, and there's this disease going on. So they're trying to find the cure for this disease, and their only option is to go to America. And they're also have a message from their Uncle Sam over there, which brings a really interesting cliffhanger. But my one complaint is I don't feel like I knew any individual character. It's very much about the ambiance and what this world is. And I kind of wish there was someone I could latch on to say, okay, girl with the blue streaks, I can latch on to you. You're the human connection to the story. I think they tried with her, but there's just so much being thrown at you, so many characters being thrown at you, that it was kind of hard. It's not a really character-driven story just as of yet. It's very much about the world building. And this definitely felt like opener to a movie where it's like, all right, this is our world, deal with it, and we're gonna see how this plays out. And the artwork is just gorgeous. I really did like the artwork a lot. I like the character designs for a lot of people, so I thought that was cool, and definitely gave me enough to want to pick up issue 2. But if this was a new writer, if this was, I never heard of Snyder's name or Charles's name, I don't know if I would want to pick up issue 2. And that's the part that I'm like a bit torn on, is because there wasn't as much of a hook character-wise, where I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait. But because I know these writers and I know that they play for the long haul, I'm going to give it more of a chance and see where the series goes. And I love the political directions going. I like American history, and I also do like it when it criticizes America's themes and what we've gone through. So I'm very interested to see where they take that, and it's very obvious that that's a big part of the story. So Undiscovered Country issue 1 gets 3 stars. Gonna pick up issue 2 to see where that one goes. So, moving on to number 8. This is a bit higher than it usually is, and that is Batman, issue 82. I got the cool plastic cover, which I didn't even know existed until I got it. I thought it was literally just this cover. I'm like, oh, that's cool. David Finch, I believe, does the artwork, and I'm like, that's cool. But anyways, cool cover. Story was a bit better than what we've been getting. We get an interesting Bane versus Batman battle where they're like, all right, mask off, or, you know, no weapons. Then Batman's like, psych, Catwoman's gonna come in and destroy you. So I thought that was fun, and obviously it delves with the themes of what Batman's been about. You don't have to do this alone. So that's been King's Run for the most part. So I thought that was cool. Artwork is gorgeous for this book. I love the artwork, especially for a more action-driven story. And then by the end, we get to see Thomas Wayne go up against Bruce, shoots him in the stomach. So we're going to probably have a battle against those two in the next issue. Those are really the big points. I still not in love with the dialogue and its repetitiveness, and I am Batman, I am Bane. It's not really my distinct flavor, but overall, I like the plot a bit more for this one, and we'll see where it ends up going. So City of Bane, issue 82, gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 9. That is number 8. I don't know what's wrong with my counting today. Moving on to number 7, which is We Are the Danger, issue 5. I've been waiting forever for this issue to come out. I really like this book a lot. I like books that have to deal with music, and I don't feel like there's enough of them. And this is just that. It's a slice of life about a band going against another band for Battle of the Bands. That's a lot of bands in that sentence. But that's pretty much what it's about. But what I love about this book is really the chemistry between our main band, which is We Are the Danger. And, that's played up here too. We get to see how they're interacting, where relationships end up going. And I like that we learn more about our supervillain here of the story, which is Logan, and how she kind of ended up in the place that she did. I do feel like there's some portions that felt a little rushed in the narrative and felt a little convenient, like 3 of the band members or band management find out that Logan's dad is plotting to make Logan win because that's what she wanted, and they hear it over whispers. Kind of thought that was a bit convenient, but overall, like I said, it's a really fun story, and if you like music, you like slice of life stuff, this is a really great character-driven story, and overall, I thought it had a solid ending, and definitely would like to see more if there is more in the future, and the artwork is really fun, too, and I really like the styles of all the different characters, so giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 7. All right, moving on to number 6, which is Buffy the Vampire Slayer, issue 9. So, this issue, I feel like if it didn't have so much going on, it would have been in my top 5, because we start out with Buffy's mom narrating the issue. And then that kind of just stops midway, and I'm like, alright, I guess this is not Joyce's issue. And then we get like one page with Cordelia. I guess her dad is losing money already, But if you never watched the show, you're probably just like, what is Cordelia doing? I don't really know. And so it's not as new reader friendly. And then the best part of the issue for me was between Rose and Willow, where they get in a fight, and Willow is tired of being perfect, and she tells that to Rose, and with everything going on with the Hellmouth, everyone has a lot of pressure on them. But also I feel like there's maybe some controlling going on, because with Giles, he's really out of character with Jenny, and is going really upset with her and with about Buffy's mom and Buffy in general. So I thought that was like a little out of character, and I'm curious to see if that has to do with the Hellmouth. Xander's stuff was interesting, him still dealing with his vampire stuff. But again, look how much stuff is in this issue. And then you have the cliffhanger with Buffy's not boyfriend, who is a watcher, that we know that, and it looks like maybe this is Kendra who shows up at the end. So what's going on here? And what does that mean for Wesley? Because he was the second watcher. Does he not exist in this series? Is it going to be this guy? But we know Kendra's going to come. That's the only reason why I'm guessing that's her. But does that mean that Buffy has died in between here? Is it because she went to the Hellmouth? So definitely an interesting cliffhanger, but just a lot going on in this issue. And some of it I don't necessarily think needed to be in this issue. So I think this is a longer one too. No, it's $3.99. Just a lot of pages it felt like. But I definitely thought the strongest part was Willow. And I just kind of wish that Joyce narration went throughout the whole entire issue. I thought it was weird that they just kind of stopped it midway. And I don't love the buggy eyes. I'm not a huge fan of the artwork for this book. I definitely enjoyed Mora's artwork a bit more for the series. And I like Angel's artwork a bit more. But I like that this issue connected to the Hellmouth a bit more than Angel's issue from 2 weeks ago, I think it was, maybe even last week. So I'm going to give that 3.5 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, and that is Deathstroke, issue 49. And this was a really solid issue. This is the penultimate issue of the series, so it's almost over. And at first, when it was going to be about Jericho, I'm like, are they really going to make this issue about a tie-in to an event? And this is the second to last issue. And it makes sense after a while. So we get to see Deathstroke versus Jericho, and Jericho's like, his skin is all over the place. You're like, oh my god, Jericho's died. But he doesn't. He manipulates his father, and then there's like 2 Deathstrokes in the end. So I really like Jericho and Deathstroke the most in this issue. Rose's arc is a little flip-floppy to me. I don't really care about that boyfriend who died, and they like try to make you care, and I'm like, I never really felt the chemistry between those two. But the artwork is really good. I thought there were some good emotions. And like I said, Jericho really was the through line for this issue. Overall, pretty good penultimate issue. And I'll give it 3.5 stars. Excited to see how this one ends next month. Moving on to number 4. which is King Shazam, issue 1. And this was a really solid issue. As you guys know, usually not into the not killing joke, the Batman Who Laughs storyline. The only thing I've really been enjoying is Batman Superman with that. And I didn't know how to feel that Shazam was getting his own little one-shot for this, because we haven't gotten much of the actual series. Do we need this one shot? And I like the direction it ended up going, just seeing Evil Billy and how he's reacted to things, but I really liked Mary in this issue, where she's the one who really notices, all right, something's up with Billy. And then I love the cliffhanger, and I'm curious to see where this is going to go. But Mary gets stabbed, and possibly will become a Who Laughs member as well. So I'm like, where is that going to continue? And that was a character we didn't know was going to be affected. And that was my biggest issue with Batman Superman, is that most of it has been spoiled. We know Donna's going to be infected, Blue Beetle, Jim Gordon. So since we know all this because of solicits, it's like, all right, I knew that character was going to do that. Why should it matter? But now with Mary, I didn't know that was going to happen. So I thought that was pretty cool. I love that Joe Bennett did the pencils here. I thought that his pencils really fit the tone very well. And then I was shocked that he did 2 issues this week. So, because we also had Immortal Hulk that came out this week. But I enjoyed this a lot. I thought it was a solid issue, and it surprised me. So, if you're a fan of Shazam, I think it's a worthwhile pickup. So I'm going to give that 4 stars, and that is number 4. Alright, so moving on to number 3. Number 3 for me is The Magnificent Miss Marvel, issue 9. So a bit higher than what we've been getting. But it was a good issue. I had some nitpicks with it, but I overall enjoyed it. I love the opener with Zoe and Kamala, and then her dad, Kamala's dad getting sick, and then having to go to the hospital. I just love Zoe, so anytime we get to see more of her, it was cool. We got a couple of pages with her. But yeah, then we get to see the stuff with her dad and the more emotional things going on. And the thing I didn't like was that she had to go fight this monster in the middle of it. I know it had to do with pressure and building up tension, but I just thought that was a little bit too random for me. He's like, oh, of course, he's in the hospital. Let's fight. And the fight wasn't as interesting as what was going on in the hospital and with Stephen Strange and the more emotional stuff. And then we get definitely some more progression with Bruno and Kamala's relationship, and they kiss. And I thought that was a really touching moment. I like Tony's little comments about Bruno. So overall, I thought it was a well done emotional story, even if some of the beats could have been a little better because of that sidetrack. But overall, I did like the series, or the issue. And that is number 4. That is number 3, actually. And I gave that 4 stars. All right, moving on to number 2, which is The Immortal Hulk, issue 26. I'm sure you guys were like, where's The Immortal Hulk? You just referenced it before. Really good issue. I did not like issue 25 that much, but at least it started connecting the dots with this one, where we get to see, okay, the world is ending, or at least in Bruce's head, and we get to see a very politically driven story, which I really enjoyed, and the different philosophy of the Hulks and what that means for our Earth. And that's pretty much the whole issue, is exploring this philosophy through different points of views and through Bruce himself. And what it means that he's going to be the head of the Shadow base now. And we even get to see Cho in here, and I thought that was a cool different point of view as well. But overall, really solid issue. I absolutely love the dialogue in here, and as always, really enjoy the artwork. I love Bennett's style for this series. So I'm gonna give the Immortal Hulk issue 26, 4 stars, really solid stuff, and back on track after that issue 25. That, again, was not my cup of tea. Moving on to number 1. If you're not reading this book, it's so good. And that is Dead Eyes issue 2. I absolutely loved issue 1. And honestly, I remember I got it on a whim. It wasn't on my radar. And I was just looking up different Image books. I was like, I guess that looks cool. And I like Jerry Dugan's writing. I'll go check it out. Absolutely blown away by issue 1. And then once again, blown away by issue 2. So we get to see our main character brings his wife to the hospital and finds out, I gotta pay this hospital bill. How the hell am I gonna do that? And he calls up an old friend who's a getaway driver, and they go to a bank, and everything's going well, except the getaway driver either has a diabetic episode or is just completely drunk, or both. And now we get Dead Eyes, who's not really great at being a getaway driver, trying to get away. And his friend Wheeler ends up going through the windshield because it does not end up well, the way they end up leaving the situation. And then by the end, what I do like is our main character doesn't lie to his wife. He says, yeah, you know, that's what I was doing. I needed the money. And she's like, all right, so where's Wheeler? It's like, in the hospital, here. And I love their truthfulness. That's what really grabbed me in that first issue, is that usually the stereotype or the trope is like, oh, of course you gotta lie to the wife, or the wife just doesn't understand. But I like that this is a very human relationship and a very realistic relationship. And I just love how raw their conversations are, and that she's very open, he's very open about this. So I really enjoyed that. We also get a pretty major cliffhanger where the Mafia comes in to try to find Deadeyes. Even though he didn't screw over the Mafia, they think he did. So there's a lot of great tension, a lot of good humor. The dialogue is excellent for this book. The artwork is excellent for this book. Brings that gritty feel to it. Absolutely one of my favorite indie titles of the year. So really enjoyed this one. I'm giving that 4.5 stars, and that is my pick of the week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Definitely go follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Go check out my comics like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her the Dancer. And every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is Comic Book Weekly, where we discuss our favorite comics and comic book news, and that is on Comic Frontline. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Bye, guys.